Hello and welcome back to the Vanessa Eriksson podcast. I'm Vanessa, your host, and I'm here to bring you meaningful conversations with leaders and influencers on data, AI, innovation, and leadership. Today, with me, I have Dr. MinJuan Wang with a PhD in human-machine interaction and over 20 years of experience in user research, product development, and AI-driven innovation. She bridges the worlds of academia and industry. Her work centers on connecting people, tech, and cultures to shape the future of digital transformation. Welcome, MinJuan Wang. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome, MinJuan. It's so lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Vanessa. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Would you introduce yourself to our audiences?
So my name is MinJuan Wang, and originally I'm coming from China. I have been living in different countries over last 25 years. Today, I'm head of vehicle data and AI at the Volvo Group Truck Technology. So we are in the R&D center. I'm working every day with engineers, with talents who are working with AI, with data analytics. So I have a background from research. So I have been working in university for more than 7 years, done my own PhD for human-machine interaction in the semi-automation subject. I have also been teaching at the university regarding digitalization, innovation, research methodology, HMI, human-centered design. So I have a research background inside of me. I think I'm a scientist, but now I'm leading people. I'm leading the organization to actually really take the technology wave on the next journey.
You see, for all that and so much more, I've worked with MinJuan and I'm so impressed with her, so I had to get her on my show. MinJuan, let's talk about your leadership. You've crossed worlds not only between academia and industry, but also between cultures. How has your Chinese background and your life in Sweden, which you've been here for a while, influenced your approach to leadership and innovation?
Thanks for this really deep question. I got this a lot since that I'm very obvious I'm not Chinese, and I'm working in a very Swedish company. I think in the past I have really traveled around the world. So when I was 19, I moved to Denmark, and then I would study there. Then I met my husband in France, and then moved to Sweden for work. And I think not only about different countries, so I have been really moving between different cultures. And also, you mentioned in my introduction, I also worked in academic and also industry, so I have also traveled between different disciplines. So this experience has actually really shaped me. So I understand that every culture has its own strengths and weakness. So for instance, I'm a Chinese. So in the Chinese background, the way that I grew up really actually learned me disciplines and perseverance. And in Sweden, what I have learned, the openness, the open-minded and the collaboration, and also the flat organization. So if I actually have the ability to combine the strengths of different culture, you really actually taking the best out of it. So for me, I think this is also shaped the way that I lead and also my leadership. So I'm a true believer. I think diversity is the cornerstone for innovation, for success, because this is really helping us to look beyond each of others' blind spot, help us to build stronger and more creative solutions to serve for better customer needs. So this is, I think, how my journey has shaped me.
I love that. You've also had your own company. What leadership lessons did you learn building that? What lessons did you learn and you apply now? When you're leading these large departments in a global automotive firm?
First of all, I think is very different context. I actually coming from a family where I grew up in the entrepreneur family. Both my parents have their own business. So when I got married, me and my husband, we also have our small company for 5 years. So when you have your own company, and Vanessa, you also know that when you have your own company, every cent you have is actually from your own pocket. Mm-hmm. So then in that kind of situation and context, it's really required to you think, how do I bring value to my customer? Where do I invest? Where do I focus? What is ROI? Where should I focus, where I have most of my time, my investment, where I can maximize the revenue. Yeah. So this has been always, because I hear this when my parents talk about this on the dinner table, where do they invest, which machine do they buy, and me and my husband, which customer that we need to really understand what is their pain point, getting best out of it. So this has been with me when I was throughout my childhood, and also the company that I work together with my husband. But now when I'm working in what you mentioned, like Woolworth is a global enterprise and cooperative context. Of course, this is I still kept those principles with me, but then it's customer value, business value. How do we actually create the value for the entire value chain? So that means is that I cannot only optimize my own department. I need to think about upstream and downstream. How together in the value chain actually we create value for our shareholder and also our customers. So this is what I see the differences. Because in the small business, you really think how do you optimize your assets. But then in the context where we are, it's important the flow is working. Yes. But then I think both of these contexts shares one very important element, I think, is people. I have been working with tech, with my own company, with my husband, and then now it's also in the tech part. I think people, that is the only and the real access as a technology organization. So this is a very important element, I think, for both small, private, and then also global organization at Volvo. So how do we upskill our people? How do we actually give the right challenges to our employees and then the people around us in the different stage of their career? So that is my view.
Absolutely. And I think, the upskill and the reskill, that is so important today. Yes. When AI is taking over. So yes, MinJuan, I think that is really good lessons that you have taken. And I love when you say the dinner side, conversations that you take then with you, because really then it is in your DNA, yes. To think, what does the customer want, isn't it?
Exactly. I just forgot to mention, actually my grandpa, he was a first entrepreneur in the city who actually made this, the small components. So when I was at like this age, I start to hear that in the backside from my grandpa. Yes.
Wonderful. When leading teams at the intersection of research and applied product development, how do you keep your own curiosity alive while still delivering business outcomes? And since I've worked with you, I know that you are spot on, and you're very focused on delivering business value and business outcomes. But how do you keep the curiosity part of it?
This is a very good question. I have not thought about it for real. I'm always curious. I think now when I really think about, I am curious because I'm curious about the people. Yeah. I'm curious about who you are, why you think like this, and I'm curious about, okay, this is a difficult question. How do we solve it? So I think the part that drove me further, it is because I would like to understand the real question behind of the surface. Mm-hmm. And then this is maybe a character of mine. I always get myself involved in the tough and complicated questions. I start to see that it's a pattern.
But in that case, it's a wonderful personality trait.
And then the thing is that when I get into complex problem, I get excited.
Lovely.
It's finally
now things are happening.
Yes, here we go. So this is usually where, and then to be honest, you ask me how does this drive? Because when you actually facing the complex, difficult situation, this is where the situation you grow most. You start to challenge your knowledge, challenge your strengths, and also resilience. And then don't back off every time when you find difficult. And then you realize that, okay, wow, it's actually just one step further. You solve the problem.
Yeah.
Most of people think, okay, I move away. But then actually you are so close to actually. But when you solve it, it's like a rewards that you have.
Yeah.
So I think maybe because I have experienced this a lot. In my childhood, in my education, in my work, so I know how rewarding it is after
when
that.
You solved it.
Yes. And when you learn something new, like now, I built an AI agent.
Yeah. Yes.
So then I think this is maybe the part that I feel like, yes, getting into the new era, getting into a new domain, get yourself involved in the complex problems, complex domains, then you learn like this.
Yeah. Wonderful. You've spent decades in human-machine interaction. How has the way humans trust or distrust machines evolved since your early days in research?
For me, I think technology, no matter if it's generative AI, if it's a classic machine learning, if it's even smartphones, this is actually, the purpose is actually to serve as a human to actually complete certain tasks. So when it comes to HMI, I think the fundamental principles are not changed. It's still. So we as human needs to be able to trust. Mm-hmm. Same goes with our smartphone, that we need to trust the smartphone is providing the right information, right functions to us. Goes with generative AI. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's getting more intelligent. So in here, it is if we actually design the interface, no matter if it's for the smartphone or the generative AI agent interface, if we design the interface where we give too much trust, which the system cannot offer, then we actually give over trust to the customer. Then we will eventually lose the trust. If we give too little trust of the system to the customer, to the user, eventually the customer will not use it. So it's very important, no matter which kinds of technology we are working with, generative AI, AI agent, or even smartphones, we need to have the calibrated trust in the right level here. And then we as a technology developer or designer, we actually have the responsibility to design the transparency of the system, and also design the affordance of the system to provide the right information, right understanding of the system capacity to our users, to calibrate the trust in the right level. Yes. And I think it's also important now, we probably will get into the ethic question here. Yeah. Yes, a lot of things with generative AI we can do, but then the question is that should we do it? What is the right thing that we actually design to do it? So maybe you have that later.
No, but I'm thinking yesterday in the panel discussions, we talked about this track 2 with the US and China, track 2 and track 1. I think if you recall, we said the track 2, it's government, they are non-officials that are in this forum that are deciding on and creating the standards. So I think we need those standards, we need those kind of frameworks or an understanding, because that helps the people. And then if, like track 1, that's the government officials, and if they like something that they see, they take it and then adopt it. So I think that's where I see, the rules and regulations or basic thinking of how to work with this coming out also. I think just now we are in the phase of excitement, because suddenly it's like, whoa, look how much I can do, So I think it's in that hype still.
I think there's a study not done so long ago, I think from MIT, They actually did around 150 interviews, and they did actually study on 300 cases of AI initiatives or startups. And they actually showed it's only 5% actually is really been successful in the end. This is exactly what you are just mentioned. We are on the hype.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of applications coming in. The ones that are really going to actually make an impact is the ones focus on the real extra problem, and also taking care of about how do we use customer data. Because for me as an individual customer, I have a question is that who owns my data? Mm-hmm. Who use my data? How is my data is used in different applications?
MinJuan, do you believe the future of HMI is more about machines adapting to us or humans adapting to machines? If you ask me, I think it's, machines should adapt to us, but I'm sure you have a more interesting answer to that.
I half agree with you. I think it will be either way. For the technology itself, it will actually evolve. The technology, especially for generative AI, it will actually get more adaptive to human, and then learning the context, providing the right solutions, the right service to human. And then we as a human, as we know that compared to the first phone that you have is a button, right? Yeah. Until the smartphone that we are getting, iPhone or Android phone, that you have a multi-touch, is like a personal device, you deal every day your business. So the relationship between your old phone and your new smartphone has already changed. This is usually the journey, adaptation journey when we have with technology. I think same goes goes with AI. So I really like the word, what I believe the future HMI relationship between AI agent and then to operators or users is a calibrated collaboration. What does that mean? Meaning that we need to calibrate the design of our AI agent into the right trust level. If we give too much trust of the agent, and then this is so if we if we design this with too much trust, then the user will actually over relying on the technology itself when the technology actually don't have the capability. When we design the too little trust, then eventually the users will not use the system at all. So we need to calibrate the design of the system of the trust at the right level.
I really like that. When I met you, I was so inspired because you're working at Volvo GTT, but you are a PhD, and I was so inspired. You need to know this. I was so inspired. I came back and I said, I'm going to start doing my PhD, but yeah. Someday.
Let's do another PhD together.
Yes. But as a PhD supervisor, how do you train the next generation of researchers to think differently about AI and digital services?
Thank you for being so nice, Vanessa. But I think before I answer your question, because I think you are also a PhD yourself.
No,
you know what the PhD do? It's actually you take one question, you study that, or you really go deep into this for 5 years.
Yeah.
So you must have a few PhD in your life.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Coming back to the question you're asking me, when it comes to the AI era, that what I actually asked from, told my PhD students, still the same as I answered the question you answered previously, because I think no matter technology change, but then when we are doing research, we still need to ask the fundamental question here. I think this is a very important, even especially in the research domain. The fundamental question is that what kinds of problem we are really solving. Mm-hmm. We need to ask independent of which kinds of technology it is, because sometimes that is where you really bring the essence of the problem out. The second question I usually also ask my PhD students, for whom that you are solving the problem. So meaning that what is your target group here? What is the target population? So then you have a target questions to actually solving in the defined domain, because otherwise it becomes so general, because for research is to get the real answers out. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's fundamental. It's the same.
Yes, I see that
It goes the same when it comes to AI, comes to life science, material science. I think this is when it comes to the fundamental research principle. This is actually across all different domains.
Yeah. And in your view, what role should universities play in driving responsible innovation compared to corporations?
I think the new generation is the ones like our kids.
Yeah.
When they get to university, they are digital native. Yes, AI is at their fingertips. So they probably, I think most of the kids in their generation, our kids and maybe the younger kids, they probably will grow up with a few agents. So the relationship they will have with technology is going to be very different than us. Yes. But then I think for the university, I think we have a responsibility to actually train our students to have the critical thinking.
Yeah.
This is super important, that we, no matter what machine generated for us, we as a human, the students or the expert, be able to really judge what is relevant, what is not. And then it's very difficult if you don't have that kind of a basic knowledge training in your brain. It's very difficult that you actually be able to bring out this kind of critical thinking at your daily life and daily work. Yes. So this is what I think. As a university, we really need to actually train our students to have the critical thinking, equip them with the basic and train them very hard on the basic knowledge.
And what would be the most exciting academic idea you've encountered recently that you think industry leaders should be paying more attention to?
I haven't not thought about this question. If I have, I think I will not say it in front of everybody. I would need to write a research funding for that. In the end of the day, I think this is also my dream. In 10 years, I could actually go back to university to do research again. So I'm collecting a lot of research ideas now.
Now you know what she's doing.
So if you have some want to do a research and save it, in 10 years we can do it together, Vanessa.
Okay. Yes. Oh, I would welcome that. Thank you. As vehicles become increasingly connected and intelligent, do you see the biggest challenge for the automotive sector being tech, like perfecting AI, or society, such as building trust, safety, and acceptance?
I think this is, I think Data Act.
Yeah.
This is the new, the EU regulation, which is asked all the OEMs that when you actually, is the product data. Yeah. For instance, the phones and the cars, and then where the devices are collecting data, is actually, we need to actually share this to the customers. So I think this is when this regulation came, I think most of the automotive industry, we realized that digital economic or services, it is actually will take speed in our domain. Because what that meaning that me as a fleet owner, you know that I'm working in the commercial vehicle industry in the trucks domain. So as a fleet owner, that I own trucks from different brands. So I have a truck from Scania, a truck from Volvo. I can also have a truck from Renault, from Mercedes. So I have a different trucks under my fleet. With this new regulation coming in place, meaning that me as a fleet owner, I can harmonize my data from all of my different vehicles. So there we are actually coming in with a lot of digital innovation, data innovation with new services. So the challenge for the automotive industry is that we have been actually a mechanical company. We are building machines. So data, it is not at the beginning of our DNA. I mean, digital is not at the beginning of our DNA. I think you see a lot of traditional OEMs are in the transition, digital transition phase. So the challenge is that how do we actually having the right data quality, that how do we actually have in the right data governance, make sure that the privacy is in place, that we don't abuse customer data, and at the same time that we can use the data in a much more efficient way for innovation. So this is the challenges that we have: data governance, data management, secure the data quality, secure data ownership, and then also to have the end-to-end flow when the truck data coming in is also from the truck itself, goes with the telematics where we have the data into the aftermarket. And how do we bring the different, as I mentioned earlier, different trucks data from different brands and harvest this to actually create the new services and the new solutions for our customer. So I think we are getting into a domain at the time there, data governance, data management will actually get a lot of attention for us to have the right quality of data to work with, and also to having the right governance to really protect the customer privacy.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about, the challenge, it is not, confined to the automotive sector alone, because I think this is a challenge where every industry is facing. And in my opinion, I think everybody wants to do the fun stuff, which is AI, but what you have just said is the foundation.
Yes.
And if we don't get that correct, all that fun stuff up there is never going to be, of the quality or the trust that companies expect.
Yes, and I think this is also what I see that we're learning from the other industries.
Yeah.
For instance, if we're looking into Netflix, this is a streaming company, their compression rate of their data can get to 90-95%. So the technology is available today. It's more for us as OEM, how do we actually really harvest this into our context, into our domain.
So MinJuan, if you look 10 years ahead, with the work that you're doing, intelligent machines, the data that the challenge that you just talked about, where do you see, how do you imagine it would look like between the relationship between people and the data and these intelligent machines? And now we're looking way into the future. So
okay. Yes, if I can dream.
Yeah, of course you can dream. And we also talked about the, should machines adapt to us? So I think that also it kind of goes full circle. So what would that look like, the future?
Okay, so I will take your question, bring into context where I am in the automotive industry. If I can dream in 10 years, I would be really happy to see that data at Volvo and at automotive industry is at our fingertips.
Cool.
We have all the data we need for all the decisions we make for our product. And then I think in 10 years, we will democratize AI. I think AI, it will be a part of our daily engineering work. What I imagine today, that you have a bunch of colleagues, I think in 10 years, you will have a hybrid team where you have your colleagues and you will have a few agents that you are working collaboratively together to actually do one engineering task. So that is what I'm envisioning in 10 years when it comes to data, when it comes to AI.
Yeah, I can tell you that, I'm currently doing an MIT course on the implications of AI. And that is a vision that they would like us to work with. That a future where we're working together with machines, we're collaborating, exactly what you said. So I think that we're going that way too. I mean, I believe that.
Wouldn't it be fun? Because I'm a researcher or designer for myself, thinking about that you have a fantastic idea and you need someone to draw the, let's say if you want to design app. Have a fantastic idea that you have an app that you want to design. I have an app that I actually want to design. I'm working on this because I read a lot of news. It takes me a lot of times. I want to learn AI, I want to learn data, I want to learn what is happening around the world. So I'm building an app, but now I'm still trying to design the interface. So thinking about that, once when you have an idea, that you know what the context you want to use, you have a team of people help you to draw the graphical interface. You have a software developer to actually implementing this for you, and then you have a test engineers to test this for you. Yeah. Then your design loop goes like this. Isn't that fun?
It sounds like a lot of fun, so much excitement. But so I think that the future is so bright. There's so much to look forward to.
Yes. It's not replacing us. It's actually augment us with more capacities.
Thank you for saying that, because I think the fear is genuine. There is a fear that AI will take over, but I don't believe that. I personally don't believe that, and I think layoffs is also real. That is happening. But I think that there will be new jobs created. Yes. And I think, yes, we might have to go to a little dip, but I have a very positive outlook that it will change, and there will be new jobs created.
And then I think for us, also for you and me, because we are working in this domain, and then I think it's also for everybody watching this conversation here, is that I think it's also the time we need to actually start to learn how do we work with machine, how do we work with AI, how do we work with agent.
Staying relevant.
Yes.
Yeah. Finally, MinJuan, if you had to leave your PhD students or your team with one guiding principle for responsible innovation, what would that be?
Then something close to my heart. Human-centered design.
Nice.
No matter what kinds of technology we are working with, we are developing with, we also need to come to the fundamental question: what is our user need? How do we design a solution, a technology actually supporting the human needs? Human-centered design. That is my one principle. Yes.
And I think that if I go back to your first question that I asked you about leadership, what did you take from, as a Chinese lady and then living in Sweden, and you said it's people. So I think that talks to you and your character really strong. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show with me, and thank you everyone for tuning in, for listening to us. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did and learnt a lot as well. And again, if you haven't subscribed, don't forget. Bye for now. Thank you.
Thank you.